Arkansas. This is Rosie the Riveteer, and it was painted by Norman Rockwell in 1943. And welcome to Art in a Day. This piece, painted by Norman Rockwell in 1943, played a vital role in boosting morale within the United States during World War II. With the men away at war, it was up to the women to take care of things at home, which for the first time included joining the workforce. This showed Americans that women were starting to overcome the political and economic gaps that existed between men and women. Rosie the Riveteer, in its time, was a propaganda piece to inspire women to join the workforce with the message that they were helping with the war by keeping the economy stable at home. Rosie the Riveteer was painted by oil on canvas. The first thing I noticed was the composition of this piece and how the body proportions weren't balanced. We call this stylized. Unlike the classical style of art, Rockwell has enlarged her body, much more so than her head. Rockwell meant to emphasize the importance of muscles in the body over simply using your mind. Women weren't joining the workforce in comfortable offices. They would be thrown into hard labor, working in factories with harsh conditions. Also, something to note here is the way Rockwell has made the flag in the background much more faded than Rosie herself. If we look closely at the texture, we can see that Rockwell painted with such detail, showing the dirt on her arms and clothes. He has managed to show how heavy those uniforms are by using such dark colors for her uniform, and then emphasizing that with the faded flag in the background. Also, if we look at the use of space in this painting, we see that Rosie is taking up much of the space in the frame. We can also see on top of her head is a halo, which brings out the feminism contrasting her masculine body. She also has red hair, showing her femininity, and her nails are painted. I would use iconography to describe Rosie the Riveteer. Iconographic images emphasize the content of the art. The term denotes the writing of an image and implies that a written text underlies an image. This piece to me conveys the same words as James Montgomery Flagg's famous poster, "I want you for the U.S. Army." While Rosie doesn't directly address the audience, she was still urging women to help. Rosie is a classic American icon. She has come to be known as a symbol for feminism and women's power in the economy. Not only did she just represent movements, she started them. Rosie inspired a social movement among women, increasing the number of women in the workforce by 57%. Rosie the Riveteer was painted in 1943, landing it not only in the midst of a world war, but also at a time in America where social realism, regionalism, and abstraction flourished in the art world. I believe Rosie the Riveteer would be classified as a mostly social realism piece of art. Social realism was an art movement that depicted social and racial injustice, including economic hardships, as well as depicting the work class as heroic, which is exactly what Rosie the Riveteer was meant to do in its time, and it's exactly what it did. Looking at the painting, we see the book Rosie is stepping on, Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. This announced a strong political statement about Hitler and was a direct reference of what Americans were fighting for in the war. The next item that caught my attention was the presumed gun in her lap. Looking closer, I noticed the hose attached to the gun. The statement, "fueling the economy," came to my mind, because that's in fact exactly what women would prove to do. An important note also is not in the surface of the painting, but rather the message behind the painting. Notice Rosie's body position. See anything familiar? If you guess the prophet Isaiah by the Italian High Renaissance master Michelangelo on the Sistine Chapel ceiling, you would be correct. Rockwell has made an astounding effort to portray Rosie as the prophet Isaiah, as she sits in the exact same position as Isaiah. I chose this piece largely for its historical background. Once again, Rosie has come to be a valued symbol in the face of feminism. Rosie inspired women in the United States, 50% of them, to look beyond the household and see exactly how they could help their country in such a desperate hour. Also, I admire the fact that while Rosie is considered an American icon, Rockwell didn't seem to have many fans in his lifetime. In fact, Rockwell was loathed by the art establishment, being called an illustrator instead of a true artist. The Saturday Evening Post tended to show art in an idealistic manner, and that was not Rockwell's style. So naturally, they published his level of unpopularity. Rockwell began receiving more attention and given more credit as a true artist when he painted more serious subjects, one of which landed in Look magazine. I believe as a culture we are still growing, and I have high hopes that one day his art will be classified in high art. This piece was painted by what some may call an underdog, and I feel he deserves some light. In a way, he connects with the piece. Women weren't credited with being heroes until this piece, even after several hundred years of suffrage. I believe Rockwell's talents will be recognized in the future as we see the significant impact on history. Even though it was considered degrading to call an artist an illustrator, Rockwell had this to say on the subject. Some people have been kind enough to call me a fine artist. I have always called myself an illustrator. I'm not sure what the difference is. All I know is that whatever type of work I do, I try to give it my very best. And I think that's something to be proud of. Hey guys, this is another piece. It's by Francis Criss. It's called Day Shift. And this piece goes along with Rosie the Riveteer. Again, it just emphasizes women in the workforce and the hard labor that they were thrown into with the harsh conditions. It was also painted in 1943. Hey guys, that was my Art in a Day video. I hope you enjoyed.
I think I might be a fortune teller. I read your face just like a letter. The funny thing about forever is it comes with the side of never, never.